Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, tonight's decodes are from July 16th, and this is regarding the Helsinki Summit, and it's going to be such a big, huge, amazing decode, probably the best we've ever done in our Trump decoding history, that we need to take the advice of one of our viewers. His name is Gippy Bassey, and it was requested that we make sure to check the trip code. And so since this is so significant tonight, would you please make sure we're talking to the real Donald Trump?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We always do check, and here it is. Let's see. Yes, check at real Donald, capital D, Trump, capital T. And, in fact, it is on his account, and it is, in fact, in sequence, and it is, in fact, yes, we are certifying that this is Donald Trump who is speaking in these Trump.
Well, then let's get started. Okay. The first tweet is, received many calls from leaders of NATO countries thanking me for helping to bring them together and to get them focused on financial obligations, both present and future. We had a truly great summit that was inaccurately covered by much of the media. NATO is now strong and rich.
Yeah, those calls, that's the way those happened. They called and they said, please, Mr. Trump, no, we really are going to get you that money. I know we got you the $34 billion before breakfast. We're getting you the $266 billion that we owe you, and we're moving forward to go to the 4%. Please do not end NATO. Please keep protecting us, because we don't even have the weapons to protect ourselves, because that's what the European Union has done to us.
But what are they protecting? What is NATO protecting? When Germany does business with Russia, what's that?
That is exactly the point where I was going to go. If Germany is doing business with Russia, then there is no need for NATO, as Trump pointed out. And since now it is on the table, and Vladimir Putin in the press conference with Trump addressed this, which was rather interesting. It was actually Trump who brought the focus to it. It was the first question, of course, because we had said that this was the big issue. And what did they say? In their back and forth, it was probably lost. And so tonight's T-Clarence T-Drops also are going to be making reference to that the press conference, and what they said they talked about, and then the stupidity of the press and the questions they asked. But the first question they asked was about the Nord Stream 1 and about, basically, Mr. Putin, how does it feel to have Mr. Trump pull your pants down in front of the entire world community? And he basically said, it's okay because I would really like to open up Ukraine again. And they got back and forth, and you can see this is the kind of dealing that they were just doing, where Trump was saying, look, caught you with your pants down. Germany's been exposed. We don't need NATO. We don't need the nuclear weapons. We can stop the charade of the Cold War.
Yeah, because the charade was really just to get customers to buy military equipment for the military-industrial complex, i.e. the deep state, i.e., it's all coming together. It's so exciting.
And the beauty of it is, that what they did was historic and it was right, because John McCain came out and almost exploded his brain with anger. Adam Schiff, the evil.
Even Paul Ryan.
They all come out. Paul Ryan came out and basically said that he is a Democrat. He is not even attempting to be a Republican.
And then I watched this Neil Cavuto on fake Fox News. He had a freaking meltdown. And Drudge, oh my gosh, you can tell right now what side people are on by looking at their headlines.
Absolutely. Look at John Brennan. First off, that he is a consultant on a news agency means he's broken his security agreement, and he is a treasonous person. He accuses Trump of treason, high crimes, and misdemeanors. Well, I accuse you of being the treasonous person who started Crossfire Hurricane, and which was an operation against a candidate that was trying to become president, and that is illegal. And it is against all of our laws. And John Brennan, you are treasonous, and it's not for high crimes. It's for your very low life crimes, and it's not for misdemeanors. It's for your felonies and your treasonous attack upon America, which still continues to this day, which went from being an CIA operation, a counterintelligence operation inside of our own borders, which is illegal, with Peter Strzok, who was both in the CIA and FBI, and that's why he was in the interagency group. So, John Brennan, you just told us who you are. These people who come out and scream these horrible things, like basically everything you can imagine. We even have Newt Gingrich coming out and saying it was a mistake. We have all these people coming out. What are they telling you? They're telling you that their lobby money comes from the military-industrial complex, which it does. And if you disturb the Cold War, you have disturbed the entire balance of the Washington, D.C. political class. And it's a permanent political class, remember. And why is it permanent? Because the lobbyist money must continue to flow in the same streams. Trump just destroyed that. He just basically laughed in the face of the Cold War. And I think we're going to get to it in a minute. But what he did with Mueller and the Mueller investigation was absolutely historic. We laughed about this, Betsy, saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if Putin would come out and say, oh, I'm going to send those GRU officials, those military officials in the GRU over to face the court in America so that he could shame Mueller like the 13 people that Mueller named before, Russians who had nothing to do with it. And Putin even went into what I talk about all the time, which is Concord catering.
Well, now, wait a minute. Hold right there. Because you're talking about the press conference that was after the summit, and some people may not have seen that yet. So please, if you haven't, stop right now and go into the link in the description box, and I've got that, and you can watch it. Then you'll know where Thomas is. Sorry.
Yes. So it was absurd that after one or two questions that had to do with policies and really the whole world, they focused on nothing but the Mueller fake investigation, which is just pathetic. It shows that how small the mainstream media is. They would rather see World War III come. They would rather see a recession. They'd rather see the Cold War turn into a hot war. They would rather see nuclear annihilation rather than come up with one single positive word about Donald Trump.
That's because they work for these lobbyists.
They work for the military-industrial complex. The Associated Press and Reuters-Thompson is nothing more than an extension of the banker-broker military-industrial complex, and they must maintain the clash of nations. They must maintain war. They must maintain the superiority of America by putting all else below us and keeping them in a constant state of clashing, of war. And so people want to say that, Trump came off weak. No, he did not. Trump was in Putin's pocket. No, he did not. He embarrassed Putin so bad that Putin had to jump on board and say, I am so done with this Russian accusations, which he gets all throughout Europe through George Soros and his European Union. He gets this from countries in the West, but he doesn't get it from anybody in the East. Has anybody ever noticed that? If he is so into changing elections, manipulating things, and turning things to communism instead of democracy, which he believes he has a democracy because they vote, then you'd have to demonstrate that somewhere besides the West. Because the West has made Russia an enemy. Sure, they collected up nations after World War II. But when the wall fell, those nations became independent. Now, true, Putin still has his hand in Kazakhstan because of uranium and oil. He still has his hand in a number of things. But at least on the surface, they do have elections, and they do try to at least resemble a democracy. The Ukraine doesn't. They've overthrown the last two elected presidents with George Soros, CIA, and the U.S. Department of State, Victoria Nuland's billions of dollars spent to overthrow the government in Ukraine. Well, that's the reason that Putin had to say, look, yeah, you want to talk about Nord Stream 1, fine, and you want to talk about that you have the most oil, fine, and you want to talk about you want to compete, fine. Well, Mr. President, I'd be willing to lower our sanctions on Ukraine for their theft of our oil coming through the pipelines, which would really remedy the oil situation. And then they talked about basically destroying what we would call OPEC by simply right there in the conversation in front of us, taking the issue even further and coming up with possible solutions as they stood there. Then they started working, because they were only asked about the Mueller investigation after that, stupid stuff. Then they both worked on that until they worked out a solution right in front of us. Putin says, and he quoted the law, it's existed for a long time. We've never used it because we don't want to have...
It was like a treaty.
It's a treaty for basically working cooperatively for criminal actions in your country where you need to associate with another country. He says, we do this with everybody. But you, America, has never taken us up on that. So, Mr. Mueller, I offer you that completely. I roll out the red carpet to you so that you can come over and question these 12 GRU hackers.
Yeah, but see, that's interesting because he invited Mueller over to Russia to do the interviews. Now, that's really good. Do you think that when they're finished that he can just take Mueller out to a gulag in Siberia?
Well, yes, because remember, Gulag delivered to him the yellow cake uranium that caused the Uranium One scandal to happen. Now, Bill Browder was brought up in this whole thing, and it was the counterpoint to, yes, I'll work with Mueller. He can send his people over. We'll send our people over, whatever it takes. We do this. This is what we do. And we just expect some reciprocity. We expect you to be reciprocal. And just to name one person, he named George Soros as an American who doesn't pay taxes, but then he mentioned Bill Browder, who took $1.5 billion through the Hermitage Capital Management Group out of Russia. He was an American. He paid no taxes in America on that $1.5 billion because he became a Brit and has dual citizenship, so he doesn't have to pay taxes. But he took $400 million and gave it to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Why did he say that? Because Trump kept saying, where's the Democratic National Committee server? Where's that server? Where's that server? Anybody got the server? Where's the server? And by the way, the Pakistani mystery man, where's his server? And so you already saw immediately fake news come out and say, well, the server's still there. No, it's not. The Capitol Police said it was stolen. The FBI said it was stolen. So, no, the Pakistani mystery man server's gone. The DNC server has never been looked at by anyone except Dmitry Alperovitch, a Russian agent of the FBI, who was on the Atlantic Council, who is also a CIA asset, and his father and he have been since they came to this country.
Which
They're
is
both
also
Russians.
tied to Bill Browder.
Bill Browder, yes. Now let's go back to Bill Browder. Bill Browder didn't pay any taxes for taking $1.5 billion out of Russia, and he didn't pay any taxes in America, and he didn't pay any taxes on it in Britain. Well, how far did he think he was going to get with that? You know how many Russian oligarchs steal their money from Russia, put it in British offshore accounts, and then go live in London? A whole bunch. And guess where they are now? They're dead. And I could name some of them, but it's no use. What happens is they wait until they travel somewhere out of Britain, they grab them, they bring them back to Russia, and or anyone that they know, they torture them until they find out where the money is. They get the money, and then if the person has been broken enough, they might allow them to live. But you cannot play games with Putin. Putin is a Russian KGB mafia oligarch par excellence. Trump knows that, and he knows that. He called him his foe, but he's also called him his competitor. He also called China his foe, and he called the European Union his foe. Why? Because they're stealing from him more than Russia is stealing from him. Remember, we're the ones putting the sanctions on Russia and hurting them tremendously. And the Nord Stream 1 and 2, that was Obama's sanctions. And so, what's going to happen now? Oh, it's very simple. They are actually going to sit down and discuss things. As they said, they had agreed that their national security advisors would get together and begin to discuss things. First thing they're going to discuss, Nord Stream 1 and 2 and the Ukrainian pipeline. And what are we going to do about the fact that Joe Biden, who thinks he wants to run for president, pedophile Joe Biden, who right in front of the camera is a pedophile every time he gets near a little girl, his son, Hunter Biden, is the reason that the Ukraine, that Putin has put those basically the cutbacks onto the pipeline going through Ukraine. Because we went in, overthrew two different revolutions. Paul Manafort helped keep Yukounovich in position. He got him in position. When he got kicked out, he got him back into position. Viktor Yukounovich, who was the president twice. We, America, along with George Soros and the Brits and others, deposed them. And there was nothing wrong with those elections. So when that happened, and we then established our own oligarchic system in Ukraine, that's when the problem started. The Ukrainians put a huge they were stealing. It was not a tax. They simply stole sometimes up to 45% of the oil coming through and said it just didn't flow through. Sorry, it didn't flow through. We don't know what happened to it. So that was kind of like sanctions that Putin put on Ukraine, because he also then built Nord Stream 2, and Nord Stream 2 carries more oil than Nord Stream 1. And Nord Stream 1 was basically had alleviated the problem with the Ukrainian pipelines, okay? So what is going to happen now? They're simply going to do a deal, and we're going to make a deal in Ukraine. We're going to make a deal with Nord Stream 1 and 2. And we're going to already, through Trump's brilliant diplomacy, call out Angela Merkel for the cheating, lying, fraudulent member of the European Union that she is. So, Bill Browder, all we have to do is give him Bill Browder. Now, here's why the DNC server was mentioned.
Before you go there,
the Bill Browder $400 million went through that server, just like the $2 billion from George Soros that went through Hillary's campaign. They can't let that be known, and that's what was also found out by Seth Rich when he went over to the campaign fund management system, which was completely crooked, after seeing that the counting system and the way they handled the information for people who were voting for any Democrat, Bernie or Hillary, had been rigged. Then Seth found this out, and this is in WikiLeaks. There's references to this in the WikiLeaks. So, why did they say Bill Browder? Because he said there was an intelligence agent who made sure that money got to Hillary Clinton illegally. We know this. Why does he know this? It was in the friggin' news. Jonathan Weiner, came out and said he did it. He said he did it through APCO Worldwide. And he said it was a whole lot more than anybody even knew. And then there were also the payments from Uranium One. So I suggest to you that the intelligence agent that Putin was making reference to is nothing more than open source information. It's not something he spied on to get. He doesn't care about spying on us. And anytime you see old GRU attribute footprints left in a supposed hack, that is Dmitry Alperovitch. He's the only one using the 1.0 version of it. Everybody else in high school uses the 3.1, 4.0. There's other versions. He's still using the old version. So when he leaves his footprints, we know who it is. This has already been proven again and again. There was no hack. There was a breach, and it was from someone who had access. That would have been Imran Awan. So when Trump ties together the two servers, he's talking about Imran Awan had access to the DNC server and to Hillary's server through the head IT guy at the DNC. So that's how Imran Awan had access to Hillary's stuff and Podesta's stuff. So he keeps naming who the criminal is. And he says, I have faith in my intelligence people. That is not any. That is only one, in my opinion, of the 17 agencies. And he only has trust in that one, and he's been acting through them. He doesn't trust the others. That's like trusting John Brennan or James Clapper or James Comey, who've been coming out and screaming. What did they scream? They have now demanded a coup. They said, where is the military to come forth?
Well, the military needs to come forth, but it needs to round up these criminals.
Correct.
I want to go back to Bill Browder. What I was going to say is this is going to be very interesting because he's a dual citizen. He's probably hiding out in the United Kingdom because, he can't really go to Russia. Now he can't really come to the United States. But what it's going to show us is who the real enemy is. And I still go back to the Queen, the Privy Council, Mark Malloch Brown, Jeffrey Patty, Richard Dearlove. It's all these warlords that are running the world. They are our enemy. Now, when I always speak of Britain being our enemy, please, people of the United Kingdom, we are not speaking about you good, hard patriots trying to get your country back. We are talking about the corruption that exists at the Privy Council. And I think this is an opportunity for that to be exposed because Russia and America can work together to squeeze this out of the UK.
Now, Bill Browder also says that Fusion GPS is after him, did a smear campaign against him. Well, that's true, because Natalia Veselnitskaya was the number one person attacking it and representing the Magnitsky Act, and she worked with Fusion GPS. She met with Glenn Simpson from Fusion GPS before and after, on the same day that she met with in the Trump Towers with Donald Jr. and Paul Manafort and the others. She was allowed to come into this country by the John Kerry State Department because she is a Russian spy. So if you wanted the Russian spy that fed Fusion GPS their Russian information, that would be her. And this is so obvious, it's just stupid that we have to go through this because we have all the evidence. It's been revealed. That's the reason that Putin, all he had to do was watch our news and he would have known all of the facts that he mentioned standing up there. He doesn't even have to do any research. And when it comes down to anybody saying that our intelligence agencies all agree that the Russians meddled, that is a lie. That is a lie. Even James Clapper said there were only 4 agencies involved in the December 2016 study that said that Russia Today and Sputnik were the agents causing the meddling. Well, they didn't, and that's stupid. And so now they've filed as being Russian agents in this country, and they didn't even close them down. Why? Because they'd have to close ours down in Russia if we close theirs down. There's always tit for tat whenever that stuff happens, you know? So what's really happening is then the second investigation that Clapper made reference to. There's been 3 investigations on Russian meddling. One by the supposed 17 intelligence community members, which is a lie. It came down to Clapper said there were 4. He was one of them, and he didn't agree with the other 3. And that's his testimony before Congress. So the second one was a counterintelligence operation he admitted to doing. But he never admitted who was doing it. That was the Crossfire Hurricane, CIA counterintelligence operation. It was never an investigation. Then it moved to the FBI counterintelligence, and that's what Clapper's talking about. The third investigation was the continuance of Crossfire Hurricane operation. It was never an investigation, and now it has become an attempted coup. And who was that? That's of course, the Robert Mueller Special Counsel investigation, which is an investigation. It is an operation. Even James Clapper said so. So when they start screaming all this stuff as loud as can be, remember, go 180 degrees in the opposite direction, and you will understand they are projecting. John Brennan yells his crimes every time he speaks on the news. Comey admits his crimes every time he opens his mouth. Clapper can't open his mouth without lying about the lies, about the lies, about the lies, which basically means that, again, he's his own worst enemy. Every time Mueller does anything, Putin embarrassed him so bad about Concord Catering. It was just, there was no recovery from that. And yet you see the far left go so crazy that they would really push the red button for World War III themselves if they could to stop Trump.
That's how desperate they are. That they know their criminality and they know where that leads to. So the next tweet, and I know we're reading these tweets and we're also talking about that summit, but they're all tied together. President Obama thought that crooked Hillary was going to win the election. So when he was informed by the FBI about Russian meddling, he said it couldn't happen, was no big deal, and did nothing about it. When I won, it became a big deal, and the rigged witch hunt headed by Strzok.
And they were complaining Trump met one-on-one with Putin. Well, so did Hillary Clinton. So did Obama. And they gave him the entire city, the tech city of Skoklovo, the last time, they were in bed together beyond imagination. But let's just go to this tweet. So what is he saying here? What he always says, which is Obama paid the Brits to interfere in our election. He had $1.5 billion from Eric Schmidt that Eric Schmidt bragged about to create the U.S. Digital Service, which rigged the elections. He created the Global Engagement Center to rig the elections. He spent $76 million paying Strategic Communication Laboratory. So he never, ever, ever, ever thought that he was going to lose. So if people were saying there was a rigged election, he had to deny that it was even possible in American history that there ever was a single vote that was ever rigged. That's basically what he was saying. He laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed about it. How many times did he laugh about the possibility that there could be Russian meddling? We now know he knew all along there was not only Russian meddling according to their report with, Russia Today, Sputnik, and the attack on the Democratic National Committee's hacking of their server, which is, of course, complete nonsense since he was part of that from January of 2016. when he was told in December. He helped start planning it. We know of those meetings from January 2016. So he knew all about it. He never thought that Hillary wouldn't get elected. So all he was doing was covering his bases by saying, couldn't be, as he was in fact directing it. And so Trump knows this. So what did Obama say?
He has a very good intelligence source.
He sure does. Obama said, couldn't happen, no big deal. And he did nothing about it, and later said that even after, from July until the inauguration day, they couldn't stop saying Russia interference, Russian collusion, Trump is in bed with Putin. And why did they have to do that? Because they were. And that's what you do when you're guilty. You project. And so they are guilty, they project. What was it really? Political assassination that turned into an attempted impeachment that has now turned into a coup, including attempted assassinations, and the very words of Agent 5 and 7.
No, Agent 1 and 5?
5 and, what did I say? 5 and 7?
5 and 7.
1 and 5. Agents 1 and 5, they were colluding to kill Trump. It says right there in the text messages. And by the way, those were the ones that I like to call him struck out, made an agreement with Horowitz to release those. Those were the least damnable of all of them, and they were totally redacted.
Well, he got to review his own and take out what he didn't like.
Isn't that an amazing thing? Though he had his security clearance pulled from him because he failed lie detector test after lie detector test and was kicked off the Mueller special investigation after being the star witness, and yet nothing happens to him. He gets lawyers appointed, paid for by the FBI. And he's hiding behind these lawyers, and he's hiding behind the Democrats who are so freaked out as they are approaching the 2018 election, the midterm election, because they're fighting for their life. If they go down any further in all of this, and they know they have no one to put up for the 2020 election, they won't exist as a party after Trump gets reelected.
Yeah, we're going to wipe him off the face of the earth. Okay, so the next one then summarizes what you really said. Our relationship with Russia has never been worse, thanks to many years of U.S. foolishness and stupidity, and now the rigged witch hunt.
I want to point out that the word foolish in the Bible means a person who has no relationship with the divine. And that is exactly who Barack Obama was. He has no relationship with the divine. He murdered 2 million people, dropping bombs on them, people of his own nature. He's part of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the reason that he allowed Huma Abedin to conduct full-on espionage with Hillary Clinton knowingly. He had a secret name for his. When he talked to Hillary on his BlackBerry and on his computer, he knew he was committing a crime. He was part of it. He's completely complicit with pay-to-play, completely complicit with breaking the Emolument Act. He actually made an agreement that broke the Emolument Act with Hillary, which then she broke on top of that agreement, and then they received $345 million for the Uranium One deal. You've heard me explain why it's a bigger number than most people quote. So, what is really going on here? The foolishness that would put sanctions on Russia was to harm Trump. Russia and Obama, you must be kidding. Obama went over and gave Russia everything. They gave Russia technology from Raytheon that we don't even use yet. Supersonic missiles.
Built that whole little town out there of technology.
They built Skolkovo outside of the tech city. Built a tech city with Obama forced the major Silicon Valley fake cardboard cutout Silicon Valley soy boys to go over and to throw money at Putin. And he made all the top military industrial companies, I can name all of them, but he forced this whole group of about 40 of them to go over, lavish money on them, give them infinite money to create new startups, built this entire structure system for them, which now basically is leading Russian technology, and then made sure that right before that they had a nuclear summit where Obama and Hillary gave $450 million to build a new uranium enrichment plant for our supposed enemy. for the person we're supposed to continue the Cold War with, for the enemy Putin who no politician should speak to, who we cannot have any diplomatic relationship with, and we should put these sanctions on them. Why? Because that was a political punishment as the last-ditch method that Obama had. It showed how utterly despicable, immoral. They want to talk about Russia not having our moral equivalency? You're right. I don't think there's anyone in Russia that has the moral equivalency of Barack Obama, who is one of the most immoral people that I've ever heard in history, let alone being a president of the United States of America. He won't even own up to the fact that he created those 80 million refugees on purpose by bombing countries that didn't need to be bombed, to go after an enemy that he was paying to exist. This is pathetic. For any of these Democrats to not notice the crimes of Hillary and Obama and go after Trump as if Trump has done something wrong when he's actually working on world peace for the first time since, my life.
We actually might have world peace.
My life. If you could get Russia and us to agree, and by the way, they used to have thousands of missiles, 55,000 missiles, 60,000 missiles on each side, right? We're down to 4,000. And we're cutting them down more. And guess who is depleting, taking that uranium and using it and putting it in nuclear power plants? And guess who's handling the dismantling of our own missiles, the uranium and the plutonium? That would be Russia. That would be Putin. They have the contract and they've had it for over 20 years. And yet, what American is going to tell you that besides us? What American like a Jeff Sessions, who was on 5 committees, that 3 of them he would have had to give a direct approval for CFIUS to go through with Uranium One, is he going to mention any of this? No, that's the reason he is asleep at the wheel. And I liked what you posted the other day, a milk carton with a question in the back. Have you seen this person? And it was a picture of Jeff Sessions, because he is lost. He is missing in action. He is now a complicit criminal. He is an enemy of the state, just like Mueller, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, and the others, Obama, Loretta Lynch, John Kerry, Hillary Clinton. They were all working together on this.
Page, Agent 1-5, who else? Podesta, the whole gang. You know, Thomas, I can't wait. I'm looking for an October surprise because, we've got that big parade that I understand that Trump wants to do. I don't know if it's still on the drawing board in November. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be grand to see all these these orange jumper suits with these criminals in ankle chains walking right behind Trump?
Yes, and it's Devin Nunes got millions of dollars given because his October surprise for the Dems started last October, and it ain't letting up until this coming October. Why? Because he is not letting up on these criminal activities.
And we need to continue to back these politicians that are standing strong for us.
And Trey Gowdy, if you think...
Oh, Trey Gowdy. Oh, my gosh.
Trey.
Oh.
It's a witch hunt. It's a rigged witch hunt. It is a CIA counterintelligence operation that has turned into a coup. And if you don't know that with your smarts...
He does know it. He's trying
You must be complicit.
He is a senior executive service operative, and he's in there to throw a bomb to put an end to this. An information bomb. Okay, so the next tweet is a lovely picture. It's a collage of Trump meeting the folks in Helsinki, and you can check that out. The next tweet is the one that has a little substance. As I said today and many times before, quote, I have great confidence in my intelligence people. However, I also recognize that in order to build a brighter future, we cannot exclusively focus on the past. As the world's 2 largest nuclear powers, we must get along. Helsinki 2018. And by the way, we are always being corrected on how we say nuclear, and I really don't care. I come from the South. I'm too old to change. Sorry.
How do we say it?
I don't really care. I mean, it's just like, whatever. You say tomato, I say tomato. Okay, what about that tweet, though? Decode that tweet.
Okay, it's real simple. We're not going to tell you who his intelligence group is. We know. We've told you part of it, but we're not telling you the other part. But that's who he's using. And if we told you the reason why he's using that group and why that group is not even located in Washington, D.C., there's your clue for those who want to know. It's because I can't reveal that because it would blow it. Okay?
We're not going to do that.
So let's just say that if you use the syllogism, okay, I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to give you a second hint. If you use a syllogism that says, what would you counter a counterintelligence operation with? That tells you who he's using. Now, mind you, he used Wall Street intelligence when he started. He also used Cambridge Analytica until he found out who they were and found out how deep they were, and then he actually rejected them. So in the end, when he found out what they had to tell him and he saw the lay of the land and he saw that the election was rigged, he knew he had to have a landslide. And that's the only way he did win. And he admits that. It was a landslide because the election was rigged as it could possibly be, but not with the Russians. And the collusion was not with the Russians. I mean, the fact that John Kerry allowed Natalia Veselnitskaya, a Russian agent friend of Putin's, to come in for no good reason whatsoever, and that meeting at Trump Tower was literally set up by the State Department. And they had brought over Robert Hannigan from Britain, placed him in the head of the NSA headquarters at Fort Meade, Maryland, and they spied on Trump Tower from there using the excuse that the Five Eyes, one of our Five Eyes people, gave us this intelligence. No. We set it up through the State Department. We spied on them through multiple ways. We already told you that Manafort's phone was already upstream, downstream, complete. Also, after Rob Goldman's contact with Trump Jr., that opened another surveillance channel that was a completion, because now that he was going to have contact with Russians, then he got connected into the whole Carter Page thing, and it became an open channel. So from that moment on, yes, anyone in that meeting, their phone was being bugged and surveilled, whether it was on or not, whether their SIM card was in it or not, it does not matter. And they were being physically wiretapped by Robert Hannigan from Fort Meade, Maryland. And Trump knows all of these things. That's the reason he keeps hammering on the very softest point. Did the FBI ever look at the Democratic National Committee server? Where's the server? Where's the server that was in Basir's office? Where's the mysterious Pakistani mystery man? And so what is he saying here? He's saying, my intelligence people have told me a lot more, and they told me this Cold War doesn't need to exist because we know what Obama and Hillary did. There's no Cold War. We advanced Russia. After Obama depleted our military, got rid of more top brass, fired more generals than anyone in history, downgraded every aspect of our military, and depleted our bombs by dropping more bombs than any president in history, 26,000 a year, I believe it was. Well, actually, it was over 200,000 bombs in the time that he was there at 8 years. Not a single day was he not at war. So, who's the intelligence? The intelligence that he has is better than these agencies that have been compromised. He doesn't need them. He's using different people. And I'll tell you one of them, that's the United States Treasury Intelligence Agency and the U.S. Marshals connected to them. And that's why every time that anything is said, he goes, well, we have sanctions on them. Yeah, we have sanctions on them. He has 1,300 sanctions that are new and 12,000 sanctions that have been that are in place, some of which he did. No one knows what sanctions he has on anybody at this point because he ain't telling. He doesn't tell his strategy.
And that's good. So the next two tweets are placards little pictures that you can see, and they say, I would rather take a political risk in pursuit of peace than to risk peace in pursuit of politics. And the next one says, a productive dialogue is not only good for the United States and good for Russia, but it is good for the world. Helsinki, 2018.
That phrase right there, I would rather take a political risk in pursuit of peace than to risk peace in pursuit of politics, is one of the greatest things any American president, or in fact any president of any country, has ever said.
Probably Steve Miller was back there crafting that one.
Well, yes, because here's what Trump was saying when Steve said that. He goes, dude, that's not a political risk. That's the best political thing I can do. And he goes, I know, but for the sake of the effect of the phrasing. So what was Trump saying? I'd rather give up of being the president in 2020 if I could get peace with Russia and end the Cold War or peace in the Middle East, peace anywhere, right? He knows he's winning.
Yeah.
He ain't giving up nothing political. That just won him so many votes. I don't know how many. I wouldn't even dare to estimate how many votes that phrase alone. As a matter of fact, when he said it, the look on Putin's face was, man, I wish I would have said that.
Yeah.
Except he didn't have to worry about politics in his country because his elections are rigged. And guess who they're rigged by? America had to be kicked out of the Russian elections. And you know what the worst part of our rigging of the Russian elections against Putin was? The sanctions Obama put on Putin were on his personal oligarch friends. And Putin, as well as top brass, as well as literally religious figures, begged America and Obama to stop these sanctions because it was hurting Russia, and it showed that there were no free elections there, that we were meddling in their elections in the worst way that they've ever been meddled with. That was Obama meddling in their elections with fake sanctions. You see how it turns around? It's the opposite of what they say it is. And a productive dialogue, they get mad because he wants to talk with him. Obama was sleeping in Putin's bed when he was over there giving him our military secrets, our IP, our intellectual property.
What do you mean he was sleeping in his bed? Are you being literal, figurative? What are you talking about?
They say that Trump is in bed with Putin. I'm telling you that Obama, if Trump was in bed with Putin, then Obama was married to Putin. He slept in that bed every night that they were doing this amazing.
For those who might not be familiar with your style, that is figuratively.
Yes, figuratively.
Yes.
I call them bunk buddies.
Yes.
It couldn't be any closer, those two. And I'll tell you what, Putin is really a big fat liar because he doesn't really like the fact that he lost control of the manipulation of Obama and the easy payoffs to Hillary to get whatever he wanted. Because Hillary was trying to do to Russia what she and Bill had done to China, sell America out to manufacturing to China, and they were going to sell out, and they already did, all the uranium in personal deals where they were enriched, $345 million. This is what Hillary did last time she was with Putin, and built him a uranium plant for all the dadgum uranium that he was sneaking out of this country over to have it enriched in his country because Putin wore out. The Russians wore out our Paducah, Kentucky uranium enrichment facility through the megatons for megawatts program that went on for 20 years under Bill Clinton's direction, and it was created by George Herbert Walker Bush. So what happened then? He had to go over and start using, and I didn't know this, and nobody I knew this until it was pointed out to me, that he started using the Oak Ridge facility. And then that wasn't good enough, so Hillary built him one in his own country. After he already had 3, some of which we had put money forward in before also. So you say, wait a second. We have more uranium-238 than we will ever need for the rest of history. We allow Putin and Russia to control it for 20 years, for 10 years, Andrew McCabe and Robert Mueller hid the fact that TNAM, which is a Putin-ran company here in America, and this was all legal, folks. This was approved by this is approved by our Congress.
Jeff Sessions. It
was approved by Hillary. It was approved by Obama. It was approved by Baby Bush. It was approved by Clinton and Daddy Bush. These are corrupt people. They had their money in the company that got enriched from this, okay? And then Britain heard about this. So they came over and they said, the Queen says, well, look.
Hey, I get my cut, she says.
Well, she says, Rio Tinto, my company, which I have the golden shares in, owns.
Oh, by the way, that's what we think that she carries around in her purse. She carries her golden shares.
I hope she doesn't trip and fall out on the ground because they're worth billions, if not trillions, those golden shares. So she has all this uranium in America through Rio Tinto, the company that basically makes her the richest person in the world, simply having the golden share for Rio Tinto, which has controlled uranium prices and basically mining prices for decades. So they own uranium reserves here. So they literally came over, convinced America, I love this, convinced America they're going to build a uranium enrichment company, a plant called Urenco in Eunice, New Mexico. And they say it's going to cost $2 billion. And they go, oh, great, because our Paducah facility has been worn out by the Russians. So we need a new one. Great, maybe the Russians will bring their uranium over to you, Queenie. and Dutch and Germans, and then you can all get wealthy off of us and rip us off. And what was it? Extortion, theft, blackmail. 10 years of this went on, and there were 10 agents, Russian agents, brought into this country that were expelled at the time that the guy who was running 10M was arrested and put in jail for this corruption. But only after 10 years, and only after the contract ran out. Isn't that lovely? Protected by Andrew McCabe for 10 years. Andrew McCabe was Johnny on the spot for Russia. He made sure all this happened. No one ever got convicted. And when they did get convicted, that the spy that they had in there has never come forward to speak to the public. They put a gag order on him. His lawyer got the gag order taken off, and not one person has gone to speak to this person to find out the truth. So he spilled the truth and told us all this stuff, William Douglas Campbell, and he's on his deathbed. So I guess we're never going to find out the truth. And Jeff Sessions, we're not going to really know that Jeff Sessions had to literally approve this 3 times to get his piece of the pie. How much do you think Robert Mueller made delivering yellow cake uranium under the guise that it was being, that they had, that the FBI, I love this, Robert Mueller makes up this lie. It's as good as covering up the 911 lie. Remember, he was the FBI, head of the FBI, right? 2 weeks before 911, he's covered it up to this day. He makes up this lie that the FBI intercepts yellow cake uranium that's going to be used by foreign powers to create a dirty bomb in Crimea and in Georgia. And you're going, wait. This is the same lie told for the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Yes, it was. They're not clever. It's the same lie. So what happens? Then Putin says, no, this couldn't have happened. And they said, yes, it did. No, it didn't. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. Publicly. What was really going on? They had taken the uranium that was owned by Uranium One before it was sold to Putin. Putin wanted a sample that uranium could be processed at the Oak Ridge facility and be made into good yellow cake uranium, which is illegal to transport. That's why the head of the FBI had to transport it and gave it to Putin personally on the tarmac. And then it was tested. And when Putin found that we had good enough uranium and there was a facility here besides the one he wore out and paid nothing for.
I mean, did Putin literally meet Mueller?
Yes.
Like he didn't send an agent?
No, Putin does every uranium deal himself.
Oh my goodness.
When Bill Clinton went to Kazakhstan to buy that stupid empty mine that had never produced any uranium with Frank Justra, Putin was there.
Wow.
Putin goes to Kazakhstan. Putin's
so he likes to make deals. He's a deal.
Yes.
And so then that's why Trump is going to resonate with him, because Trump does deals.
Correct.
They're going to be competitors and they're going to do deals.
Putin runs Rosatom personally because he said, why? It's the most expensive substance on the earth. He's a mafia guy. You think he's going to let anybody else run the most lucrative thing that there is on the face of the earth?
Well, that's only because we think we just need to get thorium out in the market so that we don't have to use uranium, and then the price will come down. It'll be worth nothing. We use thorium. We have free energy, and then we can stop all these wars, because as Trump says, wars are about energy.
Uranium's seen its day. It's gone. It's history. Plutonium, seen its day. There will be no more missiles in the next 10 years, as long as Trump is reelected. Now, Rosatom runs its nuclear facility in Russia right on the border with Kazakhstan. And anything Kazakhstan does with uranium, the number 1 source of uranium in the world, number 2 being Canada, number 3 being Australia. Oops, those belong to Queen Lizzie. Those are British. Okay? So Russia and the Brits are in a war over uranium. They want to keep it going. They want to keep the myth going. They know about thorium. They knew thorium was more efficient at the time that uranium plants were created, but they didn't create enough plutonium for bombs, and so they went with uranium instead of thorium. But thorium eats up the waste. So whoever goes thorium first is going to basically rule the world, but they're going to, it's just like the oil. Until all the oil's gone, they're going to fight over it. They'll kill all of us for the oil. Until the uranium has been used up and depleted, they do not want to do that.
Well, a lot of this thorium in the United States is sitting on Indian reservations. I would love to see the Indian reservation step up and start doing thorium energy for us and building GEEP machines and these water generators. Since we're restricted in the United States, why can't the Indian reservations do it. Make money and help America free itself from this petrodollar.
Yes, oil pipelines are rat lines for war. And as I say, until the vested interests lose those vested interests and other forces come which they fight against with industrial espionage, patent theft, and just outright killing people who come up with inventions that supplant the vested interests of oil and all the other types of energy and basically control lines. And this is also stock market, it's also mortgages, it's also central banks, so on and so forth. It's all the same thing. Wherever there's a flow of money, these corrupt people stand there and they put in toll booths, and that's what's going on. But what we just saw in Helsinki was the end to that. That was the wrecking ball to the Cold War. Russia doesn't need the Cold War anymore. We just gave them all of our technology, thank you, Obama and Hillary. They don't need it. If they were on a level playing field and there was no NATO and they didn't have to spend money on all those weapons to simply countermand everything that happens to them as our attacks against them, because we're the ones who built. It's NATO building up the forces, always. Russia countermands. They always countermand. That's what you would do if you were in the mafia. If somebody kills your guy, you kill their guy. It's as simple as that. Just like Israel. One eye, you poke out one eye, we poke out two eyes. That's what they say. Now, 2 lives for every 1 life that you take in Israel. What we have here is historic. What Trump did was very political, but unfortunately, those who are affected by Trump derangement syndrome don't understand that what he just did was on purpose to push them over the edge and to basically say to Reuters Thompson, the Associated Press, Avid, and ISIS management, who basically create our propaganda, you cannot turn this one bad without you looking bad. And that is simply going to gain him votes. And we know this because Brennan came out and said, Republican patriots, where are you? Rise up. Military, rise up. Resist, resist. Okay, what is that? He basically said, I'm a Democrat. I was a Democrat when I ran all these counterintelligence operations against Trump. I'm a Democrat now, and I'm lying, and I'm calling on patriots. He is anything but a patriot. So what we saw was Trump again blow the head off of the mainstream media, and every single vile person came out and told us about their vileness as their response to what should have been seen as the greatest overture for world peace in our modern times.